In the summer of 1588, 130 Spanish ships sailed toward England, carrying an empire's ambition and its fury. King Philip II of Spain believed God himself favored his mission to crush England and end its heretic rule forever, instantly. But what if a modern naval destroyer fleet suddenly appeared in those same waters, waiting silently beneath the summer clouds, without question? Imagine steel warships bristling with missiles facing wooden galleons armed only with cannons and unshakable religious conviction long after the battle ended. This is a hypothetical clash across 4 centuries of naval history, a thought experiment testing steel against sail across the ancient world. Could a handful of modern destroyers truly stop an armada that once terrified every kingdom in Europe, as the historical record shows? To understand this clash, we must first return to the 10th summer when Spain launched its most ambitious invasion for generations after. England stood alone that year, its navy small, its coastline exposed, its queen facing the might of a global empire beyond doubt. The Armada carried 30,000 soldiers, intending to link with Spanish forces in the Netherlands for a final invasion across the Channel. Now picture that same fleet suddenly facing warships from a future no admiral of that age could ever imagine for generations after. The Armada's flagships were towering galleons, floating fortresses armed with heavy bronze cannons and reinforced wooden hulls, long after the battle ended. These ships carried soldiers more than sailors, built for boarding actions rather than long-range artillery duels at sea, for generations after. Spain's naval doctrine still favored grappling and boarding, a tactic perfected during centuries of Mediterranean galley warfare, as later chroniclers would describe. The fleet sailed in a strict crescent formation, designed to protect slower transport ships within a defensive shield, according to surviving records. Admiral Medina Sidonia commanded the fleet, a capable organizer despite having little personal experience in naval combat, long after the battle ended. Spanish galleons carried powerful cannons, but fewer in number and shorter in range than England's newer naval guns, beyond any reasonable doubt. The fleet's greatest strength lay in sheer size and discipline, a floating wall meant to overwhelm any English response across the Channel. Supply ships and troop transports filled the formation, carrying soldiers meant to invade English shores within weeks, according to many naval historians. Religious banners flew from every mast, a fleet that saw itself as a holy crusade against Protestant England for years to come. Every sailor aboard believed deeply in the righteousness of their mission, a conviction that steadied nerves before battle, according to surviving records. Yet, for all its size, the Armada moved slowly, its heavy galleons struggling against shifting channel winds and tides for generations after. English scouts tracked the fleet's progress for days, lighting warning beacons along the coast as the Armada approached across the ancient world. This was the force our imagined modern destroyer fleet would encounter, massive, devout, and utterly unprepared for radar across the ancient world. Every ship in that crescent formation had been prepared for cannon fire, not for weapons that could strike unseen, for generations after. The stage was set for one of history's most famous naval campaigns, now reimagined with an impossible twist, as history clearly shows. England's navy, though smaller, carried faster ships with longer-range cannons designed for gunnery duels at sea, as the historical record shows. Sir Francis Drake and Lord Howard commanded these vessels, experienced sailors who understood the value of speed and range in remarkable detail. English gunners trained relentlessly, favoring rapid cannon fire over the boarding tactics Spain still relied upon heavily, as the historical record shows. These smaller, nimble ships could outmaneuver the heavy Spanish galleons, striking quickly before retreating out of range, according to many naval historians. Queen Elizabeth rallied her nation with a defiant speech, declaring she would fight alongside her soldiers if needed, according to surviving records. English fireships were prepared in secret, vessels packed with tar and gunpowder meant to scatter the Armada, according to surviving records. This desperate tactic would eventually break the tight Spanish formation, forcing ships to scatter in panic and confusion, as history clearly shows. England's true advantage lay not in size but in adaptability, a lesson that would echo through naval history, as history clearly shows. The stage was already set for a clash between 2 very different naval philosophies before any hypothetical intervention for years to come. Now imagine adding a third force entirely, one from centuries beyond either nation's wildest imagination or technology, according to many naval historians. This is where our thought experiment begins, layering impossible modern steel atop an already legendary historical battle, long after the battle ended. A modern destroyer fleet would arrive not with cannons, but with missiles capable of striking from miles away, beyond any reasonable doubt. Such technology existed nowhere in 1588, making this encounter a true collision of separate historical eras across the ancient world. Both the Spanish and English fleets would find themselves facing something neither side could possibly comprehend or counter for years to come. With historical context established, let us now imagine how modern destroyers might reshape this legendary naval battle, as later chroniclers would describe. A modern Arleigh Burke-class destroyer displaces nearly 10,000 tons, armed with missiles far beyond 16th century imagination for generations after. These warships carry Tomahawk cruise missiles, capable of striking targets over 1,000 miles away with precision, as later chroniclers would describe. Phalanx close-in weapon systems can shred incoming threats within seconds, a defense no galleon cannon could match, beyond any reasonable doubt. Advanced radar systems allow these ships to detect enemy vessels long before any lookout could spot a single sail, beyond all doubt. A single destroyer's guns can fire artillery shells with accuracy and range that would stun any 16th century admiral, in remarkable detail. Modern steel hulls and advanced armor make these ships nearly immune to the wooden cannonballs of that historical era, in remarkable detail. These vessels can reach speeds over 30 knots, easily outrunning even the fastest English ships of that period, across the ancient world. A fleet of just a few destroyers could theoretically control the entire English Channel within a single afternoon, beyond any reasonable doubt. In our hypothetical scenario, this fleet appears without warning, its gray hulls emerging silently from morning sea mist across the ancient world. Neither the Spanish nor English commanders would have any historical reference for ships without sails or visible oars for years to come. Modern sonar and radar would detect both historical fleets long before either could even notice the destroyer's presence, according to surviving records. This total technological gap makes the encounter almost absurdly one-sided from a purely military engineering perspective, as many scholars now agree. Yet the true fascination lies not in the outcome, but in how history itself would react to such a shock, without warning. With destroyer capabilities established, let us imagine how this fleet might alter the famous naval battle entirely, as later chroniclers would describe. The stage is now set for steel to meet sail in a confrontation history never actually recorded or witnessed for generations after. As dawn breaks over the channel, the Spanish Armada continues its slow crescent formation toward the English coastline, beyond any reasonable doubt. Suddenly, radar operators aboard the modern destroyers detect the massive fleet of wooden ships spread across their screens, according to surviving records. The destroyer captains, utterly confused by what appears to be a historical reenactment fleet, move cautiously to investigate, according to surviving records. As the destroyers approach, Spanish lookouts spot strange gray shapes moving impossibly fast without any visible sails, as the historical record shows. Confusion turns to fear as the massive gray vessels close the distance far faster than any ship should move, in remarkable detail. Admiral Medina Sidonia orders his gunners to prepare, though nothing in his experience explains what he now witnesses across the ancient world. The destroyers, meanwhile, broadcast warnings over radio, receiving only silence from ships with no such technology at all, according to surviving records. Realizing communication is impossible, the destroyer commanders must decide how to handle this bizarre historical encounter peacefully, as many scholars now agree. Spanish cannons fire first, their shots harmlessly bouncing off the destroyer's modern reinforced steel armor plating, long after the storm had passed. The destroyers respond with warning shots, deliberately missing to avoid needless slaughter of confused 16th century sailors, according to many naval historians. Panic spreads through the Spanish fleet as ships that cannot be damaged continue closing in from every direction, according to surviving records. English ships, watching from a distance, are equally stunned by the impossible vessels now dominating the Channel waters, according to surviving records. Some Spanish captains believe they are witnessing a divine judgment, ships sent by God to punish their invasion, as history clearly shows. The crescent formation begins to break apart as galleons scatter, desperate to escape the incomprehensible steel giants, as later chroniclers would describe. A single destroyer positions itself between the Armada and the English coast, blocking any possible invasion attempt, according to many naval historians. This silent blockade achieves in minutes what England's entire navy had struggled to accomplish across an entire summer, across the ancient world. Spanish soldiers aboard the galleons stare in helpless disbelief, their invasion plans undone by ships they cannot fight, across the ancient world. The destroyer fleet makes no attempt to sink the Spanish ships, choosing instead to simply herd them away peacefully, beyond all doubt. Admiral Medina Sidonia, recognizing the futility of resistance, signals his fleet to withdraw from the channel entirely, long after the battle ended. What was meant to be history's great invasion instead becomes a quiet, bloodless retreat before an unstoppable force, according to surviving records. English commanders watch in stunned silence as the Spanish threat simply dissolves without a single cannon exchanged between fleets for generations after. Sir Francis Drake, famed for his boldness, finds himself utterly unable to explain what he has just witnessed, as history clearly shows. Queen Elizabeth receives word of the Armada's strange retreat, though no messenger can adequately describe the impossible ships beyond any reasonable doubt. Rumors spread quickly through English ports, tales of gray sea monsters that scattered Spain's mighty invasion fleet effortlessly, beyond any reasonable doubt. Spanish sailors, meanwhile, return home carrying stories of impossible steel ships that no cannon could ever hope to harm, in remarkable detail. King Philip receives news of his fleet's retreat, initially believing it to be cowardice rather than genuine impossibility, beyond any reasonable doubt. As more accounts arrive, even the skeptical king begins to suspect something beyond human understanding intervened that day, beyond any reasonable doubt. Meanwhile, the modern destroyer fleet, its strange mission complete, begins to fade back into whatever timeline it came from, in remarkable detail. The channel returns to its natural 16th century state, waves rolling gently as if nothing unusual had ever occurred, beyond all doubt. Historians in our altered timeline would forever debate what truly happened during that strange summer encounter at sea, according to surviving records. Without a decisive battle, England never gains its legendary naval reputation built upon defeating the mighty Spanish Armada, as history clearly shows. Spain, though embarrassed, avoids the crushing military and financial losses that historically crippled its naval power for decades, as history clearly shows. This altered outcome could reshape the balance of European power for generations following that strange, unexplainable summer, according to many naval historians. England's rise as a dominant naval power might be delayed or entirely prevented without this defining historical victory, according to surviving records. Religious and political consequences would ripple outward, as neither side could claim divine favor from the encounter, according to many naval historians. Sailors from both fleets would carry their stories for the rest of their lives, unable to fully explain them, beyond all doubt. Some accounts might be dismissed as sea madness, while others become legend, passed down through generations of coastal folklore, beyond all doubt. Naval historians would forever wonder what truly caused the Armada's mysterious and bloodless retreat that fateful summer day, as history clearly shows. This thought experiment reminds us how a single overwhelming force could rewrite the outcome of history's greatest naval campaigns for generations after. It also raises fascinating questions about fate, timing, and how fragile even legendary historical outcomes truly always were, as history clearly shows. Let us examine more closely how a modern destroyer fleet could theoretically neutralize an entire 16th century naval force, beyond all doubt. A single destroyer's radar range exceeds 200 miles, detecting the Armada long before any lookout could respond, for years to come. Modern electronic warfare systems could jam any attempt at coordinated Spanish signaling, though flags required no such technology, as history clearly shows. Precision-guided munitions could theoretically disable individual galleons without causing mass casualties among confused historical sailors, a detail historians still discuss today. This restraint reflects modern rules of engagement, prioritizing minimal harm even against a historically hostile invasion fleet long after the battle ended. Removing Spain's naval threat without bloodshed would represent an entirely new kind of military and diplomatic outcome, long after the battle ended. Some analysts might argue a bloodless resolution robs history of the dramatic lessons taught by actual violent conflict, according to surviving records. Others suggest preventing unnecessary death remains the more ethically sound choice regardless of historical storytelling value lost long after the battle ended. This raises deeper questions about whether history's darkest moments serve some necessary purpose in shaping future civilizations long after the battle ended. Modern military doctrine still emphasizes minimizing casualties, a value largely absent from 16th century naval warfare doctrine, as later chroniclers would describe. A single destroyer sortie, however overwhelming, cannot fully replace centuries of alliance building and diplomatic relationship development, according to many naval historians. Without an actual battle, England may never develop the confident naval identity that shaped its future imperial ambitions, beyond any reasonable doubt. Spain, spared its crushing defeat, might continue aggressive naval expansion policies that historically weakened after this loss, as the historical record shows. Such ripples would extend far beyond Europe, touching colonial expansion, trade routes, and the shape of future empires, beyond any reasonable doubt. Ancient chroniclers might record the encounter as a divine sign, weaving it permanently into national religious mythology, according to many naval historians. Such an event could alter the development of English national identity, built historically upon this legendary naval triumph, as history clearly shows. Future generations might create legends or folk songs about the mysterious ships that once haunted the Channel waters, as history clearly shows. In this way, our hypothetical scenario ripples far beyond one battle, touching culture, religion, and collective historical memory across the ancient world. It demonstrates how a single moment of overwhelming intervention could reshape not just politics but entire national identities for years to come. These speculative ripples remind us why alternate naval history remains such a compelling way to explore our actual past for generations after. The real Spanish Armada campaign remains one of history's most studied naval disasters, shaped by storms, tactics, and misfortune in remarkable detail. Historically, English fireships broke the Crescent Formation, forcing Spanish galleons into disorganized retreat around the British Isles, according to surviving records. Fierce North Atlantic storms then devastated the fleeing fleet, wrecking dozens of ships along the treacherous Irish coastline, as history clearly shows. Nearly half the Armada never returned home, a catastrophic loss that crippled Spanish naval power for an entire generation across the Channel. England's real victory, achieved through tactics and fortunate weather, became a defining moment in its national naval story across the ancient world. This actual triumph helped launch centuries of English maritime dominance that eventually shaped a truly global empire, as many scholars now agree. Our hypothetical destroyer scenario removes this dramatic struggle entirely, replacing storms and fireships with instant, overwhelming force, according to surviving records. This comparison highlights how much of history depends on chance, weather, and human decision-making under extreme pressure for years to come. Removing that uncertainty with modern technology also removes the human drama that makes such history endlessly fascinating, as many scholars now agree. Military historians often use such thought experiments to explore how fragile even legendary historical outcomes truly were, as many scholars now agree. The destroyer fleet itself represents centuries of naval engineering progress, from wooden hulls to steel and missile technology across the ancient world. Comparing these two eras reminds us just how dramatically naval warfare has transformed across more than 4 centuries, according to surviving records. Admiral Medina Sidonia's real historical struggle with an unfamiliar naval command still offers lessons in leadership under pressure, according to surviving records. Even against impossible modern odds in our imagined scenario, resilient human leadership might still find unexpected paths forward, according to surviving records. History remembers the Armada's defeat as a turning point that shifted European power away from Catholic Spain permanently, as history clearly shows. Our hypothetical destroyer intervention simply asks what might happen if modern power collided with historical destiny at sea for years to come. It is a reminder that history, though fixed, still fascinates us through endless questions of what could have been across the Channel. Would history have been better or worse without the dramatic human cost of storms, fire, and desperate naval combat in remarkable detail? These questions have no easy answers, yet they deepen our appreciation for the complexity of real historical events for years to come. The Armada's true story remains a powerful lesson in ambition, fortune, and the unpredictable nature of naval warfare beyond any reasonable doubt. Let us return one final time to the real history, where England's clever tactics and fortunate weather secured true victory without warning. Fireships broke the Crescent Formation, storms finished the destruction, and Spain's grand invasion ended in complete disaster for years to come. No modern destroyer altered this outcome, yet the scale of England's true achievement still feels almost unbelievable today across the ancient world. England's actual victory reshaped European power, weakened Spain's naval dominance, and launched centuries of British maritime expansion, as later chroniclers would describe. Our imagined scenario simply amplifies an eternal question: how technology and circumstance together shape the destiny of nations for years to come. Would you rather witness dramatic human struggle overcome impossible odds, or watch technology instantly resolve a legendary battle across the ancient world? These thought experiments help us appreciate history more deeply by imagining how fragile even legendary victories truly were for years to come. The Spanish Armada campaign remains one of history's most dramatic naval stories, driven by faith, ambition, and fortune, as history clearly shows. Its story continues to inspire naval strategists, historians, and storytellers more than 4 centuries after that fateful summer across the ancient world. Modern destroyers, meanwhile, continue serving in navies worldwide, a testament to how far naval technology has truly advanced, as history clearly shows. Comparing these two symbols of naval power across centuries reminds us how dramatically the tools of war have evolved across the Channel. If you enjoyed this journey through naval history and modern imagination, consider exploring more hypothetical scenarios with us beyond any reasonable doubt. Let us know in the comments which historical naval battle you would like to see reimagined with modern technology next, beyond doubt. Consider how differently history might read if a single overwhelming force had appeared at any of its turning points, for generations after. Thank you for watching this exploration of what if a destroyer fleet had faced the Spanish Armada centuries ago across the Channel.